Okay, good morning once again. In the first session this morning, we talked about whether what we see is by chance or by design. We have distinguished between what design means and what chance means. And we have proved that everything we see, that life is made by design. Also, what I missed in the morning is to show that where there is design, there is also a designer. One proof is, let me talk about the Big Bang. Now, a lot of people believe in Big Bang, and I think one of the famous scientists who passed away recently is Stephen Hawking. He was an atheist, and probably he died as an atheist. He said physics had an answer for all the questions we have, life and all that, the whole universe. I think he's basically a astrophysicist, so he knew a lot about the physics connected with the universe. But what he said is that the Big Bang could not have taken place without fine-tuning. Going by number of chances, 1 in several million chances, that an explosion like Big Bang could have taken place and the universe was created. He said it was not easy chance, that it must have been a fine-tuned explosion, because they said if the singularity exploded little stronger than by millionths of a fraction, the universe wouldn't have formed. It would have kept on expanding and nothing would have coagulated into forming the universe. Or if it exploded with a fraction of a minute fraction less powerful, it would have collapsed immediately. And that's what their mathematics have shown, that it should have been a very calculated, very fine-tuned explosion. He still didn't believe in a God. And I've seen some interview with Hawkins, not Hawkins, who's the evolutionist, Dawkins, I think, Richard Dawkins. He mocks at God and he says all these beliefs is foolish. He's a microbiologist and he thinks everything evolved, but even had to admit, when confronted with some people who are talking some sense to him, he finally concedes, well, I can't prove that evolution took place because there are too many questions they can't answer. Then he said, okay, they have a theory called panspermia, which says that life began in the universe somewhere on some planet, on a comet or something, or an asteroid, and that was carried. And when the asteroid crashed to the Earth, it brought those life germs, and they fell here, and then they evolved into life that we see today. That theory he talked about, and then when they are asked more questions, then he says, well, I think there must be a very highly developed intelligence somewhere in the universe, and the aliens brought it. They came to this earth and created all the living stuff here. So we hear a lot of this alien invasion, alien source of life here. all that they're saying is, they're not able to prove evolution, but they're going into all kinds of different theories without any substance to it. Okay, and that's why I could prove from that, that people are saying there's without, one scientist said, without fine tuning, he says the whole universe is fine tuned for life to occur. Counting the various factors scientifically, he thinks it must have been, for life to form, the whole universe was fine tuned. So these are the thoughts outside, and which clearly proves that there is a designer, and we call him God. And there are many thoughts in the world about who that God is. So my topic now is about the identity of the designer. If there was a designer who is so intelligent, so powerful, and so beautiful that he could have made so much of beauty, he would have wanted to share that knowledge with somebody, especially with the man whom he has created as an intelligent being. Knowing how complex and beautiful the entire creation is, and that a super intelligent designer whom we call God has designed everything, is it not reasonable to expect that he would have communicated the knowledge of it with man, who would be created as an intelligent being? He would have explained the cause of evil that we see today and the path of redemption from the consequences from that evil that we call sin today. It is true that we see a lot of untruth, we see evil, suffering, that in spite of all the wonderful beauty and good things in the world, there is evil, hate, and untruth. People have used their imaginations and created hundreds of stories about how everything was created. Thus were born many lines of thought, reasoning, teachings, and religions. That being so, where can we find that true knowledge? Some years ago, I embarked on a search for the truth, and I want to share with you today what I found. My quest for the truth. Hinduism, though I was born into a Christian family, I must say that my roots start in Hinduism, because all the culture, my lot of relatives are still Hindus. I started my search, that's why I started with Hinduism, my ancestral religion. Hindus of Vedic times. Vedic time means time when the ancient Hindu scriptures called Vedas were written. And it's around 1000 to 1500 before Christ. These were written, I think that about the time that David was ruling Israel, and around the time the Exodus took place, that's what was happening in India. People wrote about their Vedas from their understanding. They believed that everything was created by a primal force, a power, whom they called Adi Shakti in Sanskrit, meaning the first or original power. They had a concept of there must be a very tremendous power who would have created the earth. And they talked about that power in the female form, or mother of all creation. They also considered the creation in the male form, the creator in the male form as God, they also refer to him as God. And they believed that he is one and he is formless, meaning he cannot be assigned a form, and that no idols are to be made and to represent him and worshipped. I completely agree with that concept that God, who is a spirit, is not as, he cannot be ascribed a gender because he is not mortal, terrestrial being like we are, because gender is needed only for creatures or organisms for procreation. God doesn't have to have, he is a spirit. And it is common, the way we are created, our thinking goes, we assign him, we say God, he, we refer to him as he, somebody else may refer to him as she, but I guess both are wrong. God, I believe, is genderless, he's a Holy Spirit. So the story goes according to the Hindu belief. As time passed, some new beliefs came into vogue, and it was said that Adi Shakti, the original power, created three gods, one to create, one to preserve, and the third one to destroy. After that, they created more stories. They created multiple gods and goddesses to rule the world. When they said the world, I think in their mind it was primarily India and Sri Lanka, because all their stories revolve around those places, and which they were familiar with. And each of these gods were given certain portfolio, like the ministers of certain government, or like the secretaries of state in America, one responsible for education. It's a goddess called Saraswati. I think even in our government we have a woman in charge of education, one for farming and for farm problems, one for rain, and for each aspect of life they assign gods. And the Vedas declared that a god should be free of the following evil traits or character. One is Mada. Mada in Sanskrit means arrogance, or Moha, which is lust and lustful desires. Krodha means anger. A god should be free of anger. And Matsara, meaning malice and guile. And the fifth one is Lobha, or greed. So sin in Hinduism is defined as possessing the above five qualities, and the gods were supposed to be free of sin. That means they should not have these qualities. Unfortunately, every one of the gods that they worship, top to bottom, possessed most of the forbidden traits and are known to have sinned. Hindus are generally very decent people. They're mindful and respectful of parents, elderly, the teachers, neighbors, and strangers. They learn their models from stories from at least two epics called the Ramayana. It's a huge story, and Mahabharata, another one. These stories are so well written that they grip the attention of the listener better than the best of the novels that we read today. And they were written 3,000 years ago. History shows that, in general, Hindus are the most tolerant of other religions, though certain politicians sometimes create unnecessary animosity among them for political gain. Growing up, I listened to these stories with rapt attention at Hindu festival venues where, where expert storytellers narrated the stories in different art forms. I watched every movie that was produced based on those stories. I practiced yoga for over 2 years. I attended workshops on transcendental meditation organized by my college where I studied. I attended a camp where training on meditation was organized by Brahma Kumaris. I did all this with the aim of attaining more discipline and spiritual life. I read Rig Veda, one of the 5 Vedas, and also Samaveda. I had them for some time, but now I don't find, probably I gave it away to somebody. 2 of the 5 Hindu scriptures, as well as the Bhagavad Gita, a copy of which I still possess with me today. However, I could not find the identity of the true creator of the universe in any of them. All the gods that were portrayed in the stories were not free of sin, as defined by the Vedas. They all admit, the gods themselves admit that they have sinned, they're sinful. So my search turns to other religions. Next, I search another Indian-born religion, Buddhism. I hear a little echo in my own ears, so I find it difficult to pronounce too. And I search Buddhism to find if they have the identity of the creator. Buddhism was founded by Prince Gautama. His father, the king, loved him very much and confined him to the palace with everything he needed to be happy. He did not want his son to see anything sad or disturbing. So he kept him very happy in the palace. But when Gautama became the king after his father's death, he waged a bloody war against his neighboring kingdom so that he could usurp that kingdom. After the war, he visited the battlefield. When he saw the bloodshed and the devastation that war brought upon so many thousands of lives, he was filled with deep remorse and became very sorrowful. Gautama gave up his kingdom and went to the woods to meditate to find out the root cause of evil and hatred. After a long time of meditation, he was enlightened with an answer that it was selfishness and greed in human hearts that were the root causes of evil and sorrow. From then onwards, he was called Buddha. Buddha means the enlightened ones, enlightened one. Buddha went about preaching his message of overcoming selfish desires as a path to happiness. He taught about the path of non-violence against not only fellow human beings, but also against other living creatures in the world. Buddha's message was well received by people, so Buddhism spread widely across India. Buddha established world's first universities at Nalanda and Takshila in India, where scholars from China and Middle East, Arab countries came to study. This was about 400 to 500 years before Christ. When the Hindu priests saw Buddhism made their position, the Hindus' position in society weak, as Buddhism taught against some of the social evils like caste system that you hear about in India, that the Hindu priests established to maintain supremacy over others. They could not tolerate Buddhism anymore and persecuted them. Then Buddhism spread eastward to the far eastern countries like China, Vietnam, and other places. With all the good things that Buddhism taught, things like self-denial, peace, non-violence, etc. It did not teach anything about the Creator God or about how the universe or life on earth came about. So Buddhism is basically an atheistic religion which does not recognize God. So I go on to other religions of the world with my search for truth. Jainism. This religion too was born in India even 500 years before Buddhism was born, about 1000 BC. Jainism too had concepts very similar to Buddhism, with a little more leaning towards Hinduism. That religion too had no tangible explanation for creation and the Creator. So my search continues to other religions. Sikhism. Sikhism was born in India around the time Protestant Reformation was taking place in Europe. The teachers and gurus who established the religion took some of the teachings that they agreed with in Islam and some from Hinduism and formed their tenets of faith and the form of religion. They believe in a single universal God and they do not worship idols. With some of the ideas they hold from Hinduism, the idea of the Creator is not well defined, and so I move on to my search. I continue with my search in other religions. Then I go to Zoroastrianism. I don't know how it is spelled or pronounced, but you all know of Zoroastrianism. This was the religion that the Persian kings like Darius and Cyrus that you read in the Bible during the Persian Empire. We read about Queen Esther. It's during that time they all worship. That is the religion they followed, and also their people. You presently call them Iranians. That's what they followed at the time. Historians say that religion predates even Abraham. When Islam spread to Persia or Iran from Saudi Arabia, the Zoroastrians fled to India and other neighboring countries to escape persecution from the Muslim rulers. And some of them established themselves as very successful businessmen in India. Some of our big, prosperous businessmen, technologists, belong to that religion. They're called Parsis, meaning Persians in India. But they're full-fledged Indian citizens. For centuries they have lived there. I have studied their teachings. I have many friends among them. The idea of the Creator God is somewhat nebulous in this religion too. So my search continues. Then you have the Baha'i faith. I don't know how many of you have heard of Baha'is. This is fairly a recent religion, started in 1844. Does that say anything to you? It's around the same time that Millerites in America were preaching about and preparing for the second coming of Christ. This is also Iran-based, like Zoroastrianism. It is an offshoot of Islam, and Baha'is believe in all the teachings of Islam. Three core beliefs of the religion are oneness of God, oneness of religion, and oneness of people. I would say good precepts. They say oneness of religion. That means there's only one true religion in the world, and they believe that is Islam. But I don't believe that. They believe in oneness of people, that means all people are one. I think that's true. So I visited Baha'i temple in India and collected a lot of their literature. That temple is a magnificent building, very expensive, beautifully built, good architecture. I met the people there. They were all volunteers from various parts of the world, very well educated, rich, and the elite of the society from all over the world. They say Baha'ism has brought together all the good teachings from all religions, and this is the final religion before the judge, Mahdi, call him by name, Mahdi, comes to this earth to reward or punish people according to their deeds, the final judgment. The teachings sound impressive, and the adherents of the faith are very learned, rich, and prosperous. The teachings closely resembles the ecumenism movement of the Catholic Church, the New World Order many leaders are talking about today. I am a simple man of modest income, and there are nearly 3 billion people in the world today who are poorer than I am. One way I can count myself lucky, but there's so much of poverty. But I, like many of us, have cried in agony. Many times I cry like Paul did, "Oh, wretched man that I am, who can save me from this evil nature in me?" When I want to do good, I end up doing evil anyway. That's the cry of my heart and the cry of many, many souls. Probably not Baha'is. The Baha'i religion does not seem to address the causes of evil and what the Creator did to redeem man from consequences of rebellion against him. My search continues. I read a little about the Far Eastern religions of Shintoism, Taoism, Confucianism, or whatever it is, but I have not explored them in detail, because the very initial investigation showed that they too do not have a tangible explanation of the Creator God. So I turned to the Abrahamic religions, namely Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I took up the book that talks of their common beliefs, the Bible, to read, because all these three religions do believe to one extent or other in the book of Bible. So I took the Bible. I am astounded by the very first verse of the Bible, the book they base their religion on, which explains when and by whom the three basic entities of physical world, which are time, matter, and space. Time, matter represented by earth, space, the heavens, came into being, because it reads, in the beginning, God created heaven, space, and earth, matter. In the beginning represents the time when it all began, and who made them all. And as in my first presentation, I talked about how these three basic, all my physics, all my engineering done by not only engineers like me, but the space engineers, whoever it is, they deal with matter, time, and space. All physics revolve around that. In my book that I am writing, the rest of the chapter goes on to explain the creation of life on earth in the most scientifically logical sequence. So the rest of the chapter, I'm sorry, not my book, the rest of the chapter in the Bible goes on to explain the creation of life on earth in the most scientifically logical sequence. It then goes on to explain the cause of evil and rebellion and the consequences. And all the rest of the books of the Bible reveal what is righteous, what is righteousness or perfection, that Numbers project in the part 1 of my presentation, and what the Creator did to restore us to that state of perfection from our fallen state of sin. Because in my first presentation I talked about numbers, how they represent properties like constancy, consistency, the everlasting, their values, the values of numbers are everlasting because they never change. They are same everywhere, so they're eternal or universal. All these qualities of numbers portray the basic characters of God. So that gives me a clue that the whole mathematics, the whole science was actually created by God. And so the Bible explains to me what that perfection, what that righteousness means. I was impressed with the teachings of the book, the Bible, as the only true revelation of the Creator about who He is and what He did for the redemption and restoration of human beings, so that goal of perfection, righteousness, justness, and everlastingness, properties that we have seen in Numbers, which are His handiwork, Numbers, the backbone of all true sciences, declare. The Bible is the only book that shows the way for everlasting truth, light and life and peace, that every true Hindu and every sincere person yearns for and seeks in the prayer that we began at the beginning of the seminar. Now that I found one book that seemed to have a direct answer to the questions in my mind, I decided to explore the book in detail about its account on creation. I wanted to check the account to see how accurately it depicts the facts known through true sciences. So I went ahead and wrote part 2. Today I'm concluding part 1, but I've written part 2 dealing with the Bible account of creation. This is also about 90% completed, I've written, and will be published soon after the part 1 is published. Are there any questions on what we have covered so far? I'm almost done. Brother Randy told me this morning that I didn't know what is recorded the other day already went on YouTube, and some friends called him and asked him some questions. Basically, I think the questions deal with the theistic evolution. There are a lot of Christians who believe in theistic evolution, that God has created this world and then just let it go and let the nature evolve by itself, and that's how life began. And many scientists are doing that. They're conducting workshops. I've seen some of them on YouTube. They sincerely believe that evolution is correct to a great extent. But if you have gone through what I've talked about evolution, I think it's scientifically really impossible for evolution to have taken place. But why do these scientists and Christian teachers believe that God has used evolution to bring about life? my argument is, if God is so intelligent as to fine-tune speaking from the purview of the Big Bang theories, if that was true, if God made the Big Bang and it was so fine-tuned that I think one followed by 15 zeros, that is a chance that could have happened. That is so fine-tuned that one Big Bang had to be so perfect that it could form the universe. If he's so clever, if he's so intelligent, can't he create life? It's a matter of, such a simple thing. God could have easily done that. Why would he wait on these billions of years for life to form so awkwardly, all the dinosaurs and fighting each other and shared and all that? And why would God allow that? We have an explanation in the Bible about the great flood, and there was evil before the flood, and just like the scientists are doing today, a lot of experimentation was going on, a lot of bad science was going on, and devil was ruling the roost, and he created everything evil, havoc in this world. So we have an explanation why we see dinosaurs and what happened. Their aging methods are wrong. And so these friends, these sincere people, sincere Christians who believe in a creator God, but they say that God did not create life, but after creating the universe, he let nature take over and do its own business and start evolving. And that looks very illogical to me. Yes, sir. Oh, I have not heard of that, but to me it doesn't make sense. Why would God want evolution to create a body? Because there's nothing like, to my thinking, there's nothing like natural selection. They hang their belief on natural selection. I have talked about natural formation. When you suspend a drop of water, it becomes spherical. Why is that? Because the gravity, the surface tension, as long as we call it as a shear force between the molecules is negligible, then they can slide around each other, and that's what helps the gravity force to pull it together, and that's why it takes the form of a globe or a sphere. And that's why we can explain why the sun, all the planets, because they were probably, right now I think some of them are gas giants. Gases are fluids too. They can easily flow. That's why the gases can flow. They don't have any shear force in them. So they can glide over each other, and gravity wants to make a compact, puts them together and becomes a sphere. So they're all spherical. So that is a natural formation. And we talked about crystals. Crystals have their molecules arranged in a certain array, which is possible by physics, the physical forces. And for These people who talk about natural selection talk about nature having a mind of its own. It can understand, it can think, it can design, and it can. What is nature? It's it's kind of an abstract thing, right? Nature. And they say that is designing, and it takes millions of years, and suddenly, by chance, it duplicates something. It looks very, I think, very, very illogical argument. And for the Pope to believe that that matter or nature has taken its own design and started building a human body, and then God puts a soul into that, it sounds to me very logical. As much as I respect an authority like Pope, I beg to differ with him. I think in one of my first presentations I said my cultural background is that I'm from India. I live among people of all these various religions I mentioned. I have friends in all those religions. I respect all of them. We can all live in harmony with each other. I can live right next to the Pope's house as a neighbor. I can be a very good neighbor to him. I can feel comfortable with him, but my fear is that he may not feel very comfortable with me because my questions are going to be hard. He can't answer. Any other question, please? Any question from upstairs there?
When you say you studied geology too, how far did you get into your geology degree?
I did, at least I know the basics of geology. We deal a lot with foundations, for example, and some foundations have to go very deep. They're expensive, so what they have is piles. You call them piles. You drive the piles and put a pile cap, and then any skyscraper, for example, it has to go very deep into the ground. We have to understand earthquakes. We have to understand plate tectonics, how the formation of the crust of the earth, how they move, a lot of them are theoretical too, because they have drilled to some depth, but it's not possible to go deeper than that. But what they do is they use some electric resistance equipment. They blast a small explosive and see how long it takes for the sound waves in the ground to go and hit certain rock layers and come back, and they'll see the time taken to go there. And with all these computations, they decide what is there, let's say, 20 miles below, and so on, and how they're moving. So we study those aspects of that. But you know what? They teach us, some of the chapters in geology that we studied, they talk about this geological column, the various layers. They teach us about that. They say the Eocene period. They talk about the terrestrial, the various layers, the Jurassic period. All the layers, Jurassic layer, meaning that period such and such creatures live, and we can date that layer from the fossils that you see there. And how do you know those fossils are that many millions of years old? Then they say no, because it is found in the rock where it is found. So there is very often what you call a circular reasoning. And so these are the things I studied. It was not necessary at all to talk about all those periods to teach engineers. They just have to teach us about the properties of soils. Actually, I took a lot of interest in this geology, and though I didn't believe in all that stuff they talked about, because we bored to find the strength of the various soils. We bore holes and see what layers we are going through, what their properties are. If there's a clay, it's dangerous there. Now, sand is a good layer. If you go down and find sand, we hear the song, the wise man built his house upon the rock, and the foolish man built on sand. It talks about the sand which is lying on the ground, because when the floods come, the sand gets washed away. But if the sand is confined between the rock layers, it's really good. You can put your foundation there. It's not going to escape anywhere. It has a good, frictional resistance because of its coarse nature, and it's a good layer to build on. So it was unnecessary for them to teach us about all the stories about the millions of years of age, fossils, and so on. And we had to read a few chapters on fossilization, fossils, which I don't believe are correct. And they insist on teaching these geological columns and geological periods and all that in every branch of science. I do not know if Dr. Simmons, he had to study that in his time as a student. Did you have to study these geological periods? Pardon me? Did you have to study as a doctor in a doctoral course about the geological periods or the geological column? Yeah. They want to brainwash, insist that everything depends upon evolution. A lot of medical science, I think all the medical students, they have to study evolution. They teach it strongly there. And so that's why even I had to study in engineering. And my special project work, both in my bachelor degree as well as my master's degree, the projects I did are to do with soil sciences. So probably I understand a little bit about geology, except that I don't accept the stories they tell about geological ages and so on, the fossils, etc. I don't believe in. Any other questions, please? So if there's nothing else, I think we'll conclude. We started with a prayer, and if you don't mind, I would like to repeat that prayer again. This is in Sanskrit language. This is a prayer that every Hindu prays. But if you know the meaning, it's the prayer of every seeking soul, because throughout the world, every human being, he has in his own realization that he is living in delusion or in falsehood. Although people of various religions worship different gods and goddesses, right inside their hearts, they know that there's something they're missing. They're still in darkness. They are living in death, and they long for peace. So I'll read that in Sanskrit, One reason I'm reading is because I'm preparing to make my presentation in India, where I expect a lot of Hindus. Secondly, I'm hoping that if there are people who are interested here to learn that, and imagine you come across some Indian friends, some Hindus, and you tell them, can I repeat a Hindu prayer or an Indian prayer? They may say yes, and then you go and repeat to them this prayer, and they'll be stunned. They'll be really happy. How did you come to know? And then you ask them if they know the meaning. I bet at least 50-60% of them will not know the meaning. They just pray this by their out there. They really don't understand. Then you tell them the meaning. Now, you see, Sat in Sanskrit means truth. Asat means untruth. It's just like in English you say political means something, apolitical means something opposite. So, Asat Oma, I am in delusion. Sat Gamaya, lead me to Sat, truth. Tamas means darkness. Tamas Oma, I am in darkness. Jyoti means light. Jyotir Gamaya. Gamaya means destination. Take me to that destination. Destination of truth. Destination of light. Destination of life. Mrit. Many of you may not know that English language is also, if you check the Wikipedia or any source, it will tell you that English is an Indo-European language. It means it has a lot of Indian origin. It comes from Sanskrit. So death is called mrityu. Now, you know the word for death in English? Where does your word mortal, mortuary come? It comes from mrityu. So we are in death. Mrityu or ma. Mrit and amrit means opposite, life. I am in death, lead me to life. Om Shanti, Shanti means peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. So there are just 7 phrases. If you're able to memorize this and repeat to your friend when you come across some Hindu and you're able to share this word with them, and then ask them, do you know the answer? Did you ever get an answer for your prayer? And I'll show you where the answer is. The answer is in John 14:6. Jesus answered and said, I am the way, meaning the way of the light. I am the truth. I am the life. So whatever those people have been searching for, praying for all this, at least 3,000 years, Jesus Christ gave the answer. I know some priests who became, Hindu priests who became Christians, and in their testimony, this is what they tell me. We have been sincerely praying for ages. And I used to wonder, who is that light? Who is that life? And accidentally they hear some Christian meeting, they're singing, somebody reading that verse, and they're attracted to what they heard. And they go and investigate. And they were surprised pleasantly. And a lot of them have accepted Christ as their destination. And Jesus says, peace. Now every soul longs for peace. And the answer for that peace is Jesus. He says, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. So I'll just read this. They do it in a sing-song way, all the Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, they memorize by repeating them in a sing-song way, like a poem. And what I'm going to do is my own tune to that. So I just heard some people repeat that, so I'm trying to imitate that. So there's no fixed tune for that. So right now I'm going to say that, and if you like to learn or something, I'll be able to teach you later. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya, om shanti shanti shanti. Very simple, short prayer, but very powerful prayer. May God bless each one of you. I'll just close with prayer. Our Father in heaven, Lord, we come to you once again, thanking you for all your goodness towards us. Father, you gave us an opportunity to stop for a while and think on the subjects that have been confusing a lot of our young people. We know, Father, that there is a Creator God. The evidence is all around us. The heavens declare the glory of God. The earth uttereth speech. The night unto day, night unto night, shows us knowledge. Everywhere we see, Lord, we know that you are the Creator, and all the wonders are created by you. Strengthen us in our faith and be with each one of us as we depart to our homes. In Jesus' name I pray.